In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
Thanks, Lisa. Today, we dive deep into the world of forensic thrillers with an expert who truly knows her crime scenes. Our guest is an author, screenwriter, speaker, and forensic specialist who grew up in the coroner's office, literally. From investigating her first fatality at just 8 years of age to consulting on hit TV crime dramas, she spent a lifetime bringing authenticity to the page and screen. Jennifer Graeser Dornbush's newest entry in her Emily Hartford series is Frozen Lives, where the Chicago surgeon returns to her Michigan hometown for the unthinkable, a missing child, the son of her best friend. Against an unforgiving backdrop of a frozen Lake Michigan, relief turns to dread when the boy's story doesn't add up and the real terror begins. Jennifer Dornbush, welcome. It's great to see you.
It's good to be here.
Where in the heck did that story come from?
I don't know that I want to know where that comes from in my brain. But really, this is the fourth book in the series. And the way I ended the third book, Dr. Emily, who's our protagonist, our heroine, her best friend's son, 11-year-old son, is kidnapped at the end of the third book. Spoiler, y'all. But so I knew in the fourth book I wanted to put Jo and her son in jeopardy, and that Emily would have to come back and help them in some way. But there's got to be a killer, and right. So it starts out as a kidnapping, and then as they try to figure out who's kidnapped them, I don't want to give too many. They unravel the secret of this person, this killer. And so by the second half, it's really more of like a cat and mouse, where now they know who it is. So it's not really a whodunit toward the end. It's more about now we got to find them before they kill their next victim. So is
it hard to write about kids in a dark way like this?
It kind of, I kind of was actually. I was like, oh, but he's such a spunky little creature, and he ends up having a very heroic moment. So, yeah. But it actually was harder writing it from the mom's point of view, because like she's trying to keep them alive, right? So I have all these different points. It's not just from Emily's point of view. I have different points of view, and Jo is one of the points of view. And so that was actually harder, like what a mom, putting yourself in the shoes of a mom who's been kidnapped and then with her son, and then what does that feel like, and how you just want to live, and you want that kid to live. And there's another secret about Jo, which I won't say, but that's happening at the same time. It's just like, yeah, mom mode. Because I'm not a mom. I've never been a mom. So getting into that mom mode of like, what would that be like? That's got to be terrifying, you know? And
that's part of what you have to learn as a writer, right? We're all not serial killers either, but we have to get into those heads.
Yeah.
Where do your ideas come from?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, as you mentioned, like I grew up around forensics. So this is not uncharted territory for me. I literally grew up at the table with talking about death investigation and talking about how cases are solved, and especially death cases, and what that looks like in the forensic things you do to figure out how a person died or was killed sometimes. So I don't know, it's just always sort of been a part of the fabric of my life. And then later I did actually go to get some forensic training because I wanted to learn more. And so I just read a lot. I'm sort of immersed in that world. I know a lot of people in that world. And
everybody knows your resume, but give us a real quick synopsis of your journey.
Well, my first job, I was 8. We had a fruit and vegetable stand. Nothing to do with forensics. I've been an entrepreneur from a very young age. So I actually started in journalism. My first professional paid job, I think I got $25 for this article, was for my hometown newspaper. But I knew I wanted to be a writer from a very young age. And so I dove into journalism and then public relations, marketing, media, fundraising, all basically telling the stories of companies, right? Like telling other people's stories so that they could get promotion. This is all pre-internet. So there was no, social media to deal with. It was like writing the old press releases. But then I launched into teaching. I did teach for a while. I taught high school and college rhetoric and literature for a while I was building my own writing career. So I finally realized I want to write like fiction. Like I started in screenwriting. So I went to LA and got trained as a screenwriter and eventually moved over to also doing novels, because I don't know if you've noticed, but about 90% of everything that's on our screens comes from a book. So thought maybe I should do that, and it's paying off. So yeah, so I've been writing a very long time, and I love to tell people stories.
Which is harder, screenwriting or writing a novel?
At first I would, a couple years ago, I would have said writing a novel because screenwriting was all that I knew. But now I don't know, because screenwriting is like writing poetry. You have to write very terse, very short, concise. And I think writing short and concise can be sometimes harder than writing bigger,
Well, you only have 120 pages to get the story told.
Yeah.
And in the screenwriting trade, so much of the action, it feels like, is dictated by the director and the budget. How did you set up exposition in a screenplay?
The action is actually first dictated by the screenwriter. You do have to write action. You have to bring that story through with a plot. And characters have to respond in action, not just dialogue. So it's challenging because you're always thinking about what is the action that portrays what my character is thinking, So it's actually, for screenwriters, it's very action heavy. So, and then the interpretation of that continues to the actor and the director. And
then you grew up in a house with a medical examiner.
Yes.
And how did you explain that when you were in elementary school and you had to get up in front of the class and say what your daddy did for a living?
I know. I didn't. I never even thought about it. And we lived in a small town, so everybody knew what he did. Like, I literally never thought about it. Until probably like junior high, when you realize, like, when people ask, what does your dad do? And then you're like, oh, I guess that's kind of weird now that I think about it. Because when you say he's a medical examiner, back then people would give you a blank stare like, what is that? Nobody had any clue what forensics was, medical examining, coroners. They had no idea what that was. So then I was like, oh yeah, maybe this is a little different than most kids.
How would you describe your father's personality?
Yeah, there was definitely a gallows humor. And I would say it probably came out more in his work life, like with his detectives and that. But I remember a lot of pretty dark jokes being thrown around. And I mean, we even had a mug in our, cupboard that was the coroner's motto. And it was, our day begins when yours ends. It's like, that was the kind of dark humor I grew up around. I think you're right. I've known a lot of medical examiners throughout the years and coroners, and they're some of the nicest, funniest people. Yeah.
What do you think your dad's mindset was to be able to deal with all of that stuff?
He didn't talk about it a lot, but he did say that the one type of case that was very hard for him was children. And I remember one time, and I was young, like maybe 7 to 10 age, and I have 2 younger sisters as well. And he had to investigate a house fire where I think it was two or three daughters who were very close to our ages were killed. And their parent, anyway, it's a whole story about their parents had just stepped out for a second and something happened and they all died. And I remember he came home after that and he gave us instructions, fatherly lectures about what do you do if the house is on fire? Like, how do you escape? Like those were we were always getting these kinds of lectures of like, let's say you're, trapped in a car. What can you do? But that was really hard for him. And then to come home to these living daughters. So.
What's the hardest part about the writing process for you?
The first draft. That blank page. And I'm an outliner. So like even I structure, I outline before I have pages of notes. But that first, that empty page, I'll do second and third drafts any day.
Is it just a kernel of an idea in your head and then you go from there?
Okay. So I have a box full of ideas, right? That I just keep tossing ideas into, and then, or books that I want to adapt, or just so many ideas. And so that's usually where it starts. Sometimes it'll just be a kernel of an idea, and but I'm always throwing ideas into the box and see where it goes.
Graeser Dornbush is our guest. We're talking about Frozen Lives, her latest and greatest, available wherever cool books are sold. Her website is Jennifer, DORNBUSH.com, JenniferDornbush.com. You've consulted on some of the most popular television shows of the era, the new version of Hawaii Five-0, Bull, Suits. How'd you get those gigs, and what was a typical day like when you were working on those things?
Yeah, so it's going to sound very unglamorous when I tell it. So I lived in LA for a long time and worked in the TV and film industry. And I know a lot of writers because of living there and working there. So honestly, it came very organically, just people reaching out with questions. People who wrote on those shows, or people I know who were writing on those shows, really just reaching out with questions. It's not, they don't really like hire people to like sit in the writer's room and, talk about forensics all day, although that would be super cool. But it's more of like the writers will be working on a story and there'll be a little plot point and like, how would that work out? What if we did this? Was that plausible? And then I get a phone call or an email.
How did you develop your mentorship and speaking careers?
I published this book called Forensic Speak, and it's a nonfiction book on forensic science that I wrote to graduate from my Forensic Science Academy. I never meant for it to be published. It was just a project I needed to complete to graduate. But my writer friends in LA were like, this is really cool and we need this book. You should publish it. And I was like, no. And then my one friend pushed me, and she pushed me into this publisher called Michael Weesey Productions. And they are a niche publisher that publishes pretty much any and all books dealing with like the film and TV media industry. And she's like, you need to submit. So I submitted to there, and they've snatched it up. They snatched it up right away. And from that book, once that book got published, I don't know, the publisher started connecting me. People started just showing up and, hey, can you speak here? Can you teach this class? Can you do that? And I had been a teacher. So it was, I was happy to help because I loved to teach. So it was just sort of this organic development.
Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I have tested myself many times, and I am a classic introvert.
So when you get done with these things, it takes you a day to recover from being so outwardly focused.
Yes. I've learned to be a social extrovert, but boy, I love my quiet time alone. I think you just have to carve out your own space and time. And I'll tell people like, I'm working. So if I don't answer your call or your email, it's because, I'm writing. So I'm not talking to people right now. I think it also helps to, like we were talking about prior to this, just keeping a normal schedule. Like I keep very simple office hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. I'm in my office working. If you're sort of in sync with the rest of the world, how that works, then it's sort of easy to keep that time sacred.
I've heard other authors say that plumbers don't get plumber's block. Writers aren't allowed to have writer's block, but we do get stuck. How do you get unstuck when you're in that situation?
We do get stuck. I think it's easy to get unstuck because I just start researching, or I call a friend, or I call, obviously my work, a lot of it has technical aspects to it that are in forensics or the medical field. And gratefully, I know a lot of people in that field. So I'll just call somebody and like, hey, I'm working on this FBI character, and what would happen if they did this and blah, blah, blah. And then we just have a conversation, and then I'm unstuck. And then I can see through how the storyline goes. I think research and talking to people is just the answer. Like, so easy to do.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions about crime fiction that you see?
I actually have a whole lecture on this that I teach. I have 10 forensic faux pas but there's good reasons for them. And I see them more in film and television because in film and TV, you don't have as much time. And a lot of them have to do with time. Like, you don't get DNA results in 5 minutes. It's going to take you 2 to 8 weeks, probably. So it's getting better, but just that time crunch is a huge misconception. Like, these detectives and police, once they investigate a crime, they have up to 6 weeks to write up their report. Cases take a long time in the real world.
Who would you want to have play Emily?
Oh, God.
On television or on screen?
I'm so bad with this question. But somebody had recently suggested to me Rachel, what's her name? Brosnahan? I'm terrible at saying. Mrs. Maisel, the marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, yeah. And she's the right age, too. She's great at that.
Exactly.
Secondary characters in your book are so powerful and so richly drawn. Why are they important, and how do you make them so good?
Oh, my goodness. Well, they're important because you need other plots, for one. You're building a world, right? And when I'm building a new story, I always ask, what are the 3 central characters, or what are 3 characters who are central to my main character? And then what are the kind of the plots going on between them, the things that are happening between those characters and my main character? Because, that's how life is, right? We have many people in our lives. Many people speak into our lives. It makes the storytelling more complex and layered and interesting. And
they can get some great screen time moments, too.
Yes. Yeah, I've had people say, and I've kind of fallen in love with this one character called Delia. She's a former FBI agent. And people are like, I think she needs her own series. Like, she's kind of...
That's a risk, isn't it? Because sometimes those secondary characters can become so powerful, they overshadow the heroine.
Yeah, exactly.
What do your 5-star readers love most about your writing?
That is a good question, because I try not to read reviews, for better or worse. And this is something that I learned very early on when I was screenwriting. Because it can be for me, some people can do it. For me, it was sort of presented to us. I had such great writing mentors. I had handfuls of writing mentors. And I remember one of them was basically saying, like, I'm going to probably mess this up, but like, don't believe, your worst criticism or your biggest praise. Don't believe either. Don't fall in line with either. Just keep creating. And so I do try to kind of put the blinders on and just create, because I love my readers. I love them so much. And I'm so happy when they love the story. But I'm trying to just, as a human being, just do what I've been called to do, which is to write, create.
We all get feedback. How do you decide what to keep and what to throw away?
Yeah. So this is so interesting. The world of film and TV is so different from the publishing world. In the publishing world, I only have a few chefs in my kitchen. My editors are amazing. My developmental editor, I like amazing. And so I take most of what he gives me because it's brilliant. And if I ever have, it's usually very small things that I'm saying, oh, I don't think I'm going to take that note. It's this small little thing. So it's really lovely to have somebody who knows story and really understands what you're trying to do with it. In the film and TV world, there are so many cooks in the kitchen, and that's where I learned to take notes, right? I'm so grateful I had that experience first, because it took me a while. At first, you're just taking everything, and then you realize I can't take everything. It's just ruining the project, and you have to keep going back to that original idea, that original what you're trying to do. And I don't know, somewhere along the line, I just developed this thing. It's hard to explain. It's just a gut thing where if somebody gives me a note I just know immediately, like, if it's going to work or not.
You learn to process feedback quickly and decide what pieces are going to help you and what aren't. And occasionally you'll get a gem, a piece of solid gold that just changes everything. That's
so good.
I think it's what we all live for, right?
And then your gut knows, like your gut tells you. And I wish I could give a more specific, here's the formula of how you know which notes to take and not.
Why do you write?
I knew I was going to be a writer since I was a kid. When I was that kid who, like, as a small child, 4 and 5 years old, was making out stories and plays and, like, forcing my sisters to play the parts and, like, being the director. And then my friends would come over and I'd add more parts. Like, that was, like, I didn't make the choice. Like, that's just how we played. Isn't it?
You were born to do it.
It's crazy. Like, I wish I could go back and see, what were those stories? What were we, what was that play? I remember we always be like, Mom, Dad, come see my new play. And I'm sure they were just, like, rolling their eyes.
Well, they did something right.
The other thing they did right was they read to us a lot. We had bookshelves and we had library cards, and we did many trips to the library, and they read to us every night. So I think that's huge. Just that storytelling was a part of our world from when we were infants.
What was it like the first time you heard a narrator render one of your books?
Yeah. Sophie Amos is the narrator of The Coroner's Daughter, and I actually got to pick her. So they gave me, like, 3 choices of narrators, and as soon as, like, it wasn't even close. Like, as soon as I heard her, I was like, that's it. She's Emily. Done. And here we are, 8 years later. Yeah.
But there's that magic moment when you hear those words that you've written being said by somebody else who is a voice actor for the first time.
Mm-hmm. That was a cool moment. But actually, before that, I had a theatrical film, so I got to see my words come alive on screen and my dialogue. So, and actually be there for most of the shooting and the filming. So that's pretty cool to watch that happen, where you're like, oh my gosh, I wrote that. Like, I wrote that whole scene and they're saying the things I wrote. This is crazy.
How much of what you originally submitted ended up going on the screen?
Quite a bit. I co-wrote it with the director. And then sometimes the actors would, tweak things, but that was kind of cool to see. And then I get to talk with them about the characters, and they saw things in the characters I never had seen. And that was a neat experience too.
Is that project someplace where your readers can see it?
I believe it's still on Netflix. It's called God Bless the Broken Road.
You've done a lot of these, Jennifer. What question haven't I asked you that you wish that I had?
Oh, my goodness. I'm just grateful to be able to do what I love, and to use all the things. I mean, growing up, I never thought I would use all the things as much as I am. That's been surprising. But then I look at people. I was just at the Tucson Festival of Books 2 weeks, which is for readers, a fabulous. But I love this festival. This was my 4th time. And I got to be on a couple panels, but I also moderated a panel. And this is the 2nd time I've moderated this J.A. Jance. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's now in her 80s, but she's written, oh my goodness, I think over 60 mystery crime novels. And she's just such a inspiration to me, how she lives her life, but also how she can just continue to produce and create. I'm like, I want to be her when I grow up. Like, that's just such a life well lived, It just so good.
The newest book is Frozen Lives. It's a 5-star hit on Amazon, available wherever cool books are sold. Written by our special guest, Jennifer Graeser Dornbush. Jen, this has been fantastic. Thank you for the conversation.
You're so lovely. Oh, my goodness.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.